This essay example, as well as thousands of others, is available in text format on our website for free and without registration. Simply Google Ivy Panda Free Essays.
S.Glaspell, the author of the play Trifles, exhibits the behavioral nature of major and minor characters, which groups them as round or flat. She constructs the play after working as a journalist researching the murder of John Hossack, hence categorizing it as a real story. In Glaspell's play, the characters display stereotypes, especially gender and cultural stereotypes. According to Wiehardt, round characters are the main characters in a piece of writing who face problems in their life that become their turning point. They undergo an awful experience that pressures them to change their character. On the other hand, a flat character is an unprogressive minor character in a story that remains in the same position throughout the story. In the play Trifles, the author strategically features two round characters, Minnie Foster and John Wright. However, the play has a good share of flat characters like Mrs. Hale and Mr. Hale. In her early days, Minnie Foster is a felicitous, melodious, and always in good spirits girl. Her dresses are bright colors, making her famous among other girls. Unfortunately, after her marriage to Mr. Wright, her cheerful character turns into sorrow, hence, only a somber mood prevails in her house. One of Mrs. Wright's neighbors, Mrs. Hale, describes her character as beautiful, fearful, and cautious, but all her behaviors disappear immediately after the marriage ceremony. Mr. Wright is Minnie's husband, whose character as uncouth, crude, and harsh turns him oppressive, especially to his loyal wife. Minnie's 30 years of marriage is void of happiness. However, one night, Mr. Wright dies when he is asleep. Surprisingly, Minnie says that someone strangled her husband while she was deep asleep. Unfortunately, her husband's friend, Mr. Hale, discovers the death and reports it to the authorities. The sheriff and attorney ignore her claims and, hence, choose to put her in remand. After critical investigations, the law convicts her of murder because there is no trace of another person, as she claims. According to Wiehardt's description of a round character, Minnie's unchanging character categorizes her as one. Although Minnie has a subservient and scheming character, her husband's oppressive nature turns her into a murderer and outrageous woman, hence killing him after 3 decades of marriage. John Wright stands out as a round character dominated by chauvinism. John Wright's chauvinistic character makes him an oppressor, especially to his wedded wife. He disrespects, hates, and abuses his wife all the time, hence turning his wife against him. Although he is uncouth, unfriendly, and selfish, his wife overpowers him, killing him instantly. John Wright becomes powerless and weak, losing his ability to overpower or control his wife. The ability of Mr. Wright to change his domineering nature describes him as a round character. However, George Henderson is a round character who is challenging, as presented by the author. The county attorney, Mr. George Henderson, is among the flat characters as described by Wiehardt. He is one of the law enforcers carrying out the murder case of Mr. Wright. He bases on his professional qualifications and experience to carry out the investigation. He is stern and serious and dismisses opinions from other people. Ironically, as a crime expert, he does not concentrate on Mrs. Wright's kitchen, which is a woman's place. However, he focuses on the bedroom and the barn where her husband spends most of his time. As a law enforcer, he convicts Mrs. Wright to prison, yet he has inadequate evidence. Additionally, he is unable to unfold one of the main pieces of evidence, a box that describes Mrs. Wright as a murderer. The inability of the attorney to consider and be keen on other people, especially women, puts him under a flat character. The other law enforcer at the crime scene is the sheriff, Henry Peters. He backs up the attorney during the investigation. Likewise, he overlooks the areas in the house, like the kitchen, which could nail Mrs. Wright down. Additionally, he has a contemptuous character, hence kicking a basket belonging to Mrs. Wright, yet it might be the source of evidence. Peters has a non-dynamic, unchanging character, categorizing him as a flat character. Mrs. Hale stands out as an ignorant but obedient flat character as the play unveils. Mrs. Hale is the wife of Mr. Hale. Additionally, she is a neighbor to the Wrights, but due to frequent fights in the home, she abandons the family. However, she turns up when a calamity hits the family, the death of Mr. Wright. Although the sheriff and the attorney disapprove of her contribution to the murder case, she loiters around the crime scene, hence discovering a box that contains evidence against Mrs. Wright. As a woman, she decides to ignore the law officers and hides the box. She displays her submissiveness and quietness, as society expects from her. Mrs. Hale's character as obedient and submissive describes her as a flat character. She is not ready to break the law. Therefore, she secretly keeps the box with evidence. Lewis Hale is a farmer, neighbor, and friend to the Wright family. When he comes to visit his neighbors, he discovers the death of Mr. Wright from his wife. He decides to report the murder case to the police station. During the investigation, he follows the sheriff and attorney because he is determined to unravel the truth. However, his presence at the crime scene does not change the situation. Mr. Hale's character as a good neighbor, friendly and loyal to his character, is non-dynamic even after he discovers a crime. The issue of stereotypes assumes a good share in the play through the way the author strategically allocates the different roles to her different characters, who in turn successfully depict the stereotypes ranging from gender to culture. The characters in the play display a high level of stereotype. There is both cultural and gender stereotyping. The men oppress women in society, a situation women are unable to change. The play describes the kitchen as the woman's place and not a bedroom or barn. Due to discrimination, Mrs. Hale decides to protect Mrs. Wright as a fellow woman, hence keeping away the evidence that she is a murderer. In summary, there are two types of characters in the play, round and flat characters. Mr. and Mrs. Wright are the round characters because of their dynamic nature. The rest of the characters fall under flat characters because their situation and behavior are stagnant in the play. Finally, stereotyping is an issue that the author fully exhibits in the play. The women are submissive, standing out as ones who face oppression from society, a role they willingly accept. This essay on round and flat characters in Trifles by S.Glaspell was written and submitted by a student just like you. The Ivy Panda Samples database hosts thousands of works similar to this one, on various subjects. Visit ivypanda.com to find what you are looking for.